Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Lunchtime Learning. I'm delighted today to be joined by Ryan Stanton, who's the area manager from Fisks Estate Agents. How are you?
I'm really good, Stephen. How are you? Thanks for having me
Really
on.
well, thank you. So, talk to us. How'd you get into estate agency?
It's a long story, really, but when I left college, because I went to college to sort of study to be a video editor, um, you leave college and you think, what do I do? I was going to go to uni. That was that was the path I was considering. But I was always a musician. That was always sort of a passion of mine. And the band just managed to take off. My dad became the manager because he's always been a musician for Ovi, and then we got a record deal. And for years, that was my life. I was just touring America. I was supporting bands and just trying to live the dream, basically. And that was from the age of 18. But we achieved so many good things. But obviously, band members leave as well. It knocks you back 6 months, and it's a ruthless game, the music industry. So we did that for a good few years, and I was 24, approaching 25, and the band had sort of split up. Well, we took a pause on things anyway because we had a couple of band members that had left, and I felt drained with the whole music industry because everyone promises you so much, and you're close to doing something, and again, it's like snakes and ladders. You're really nearly at the top, and then you all of a sudden you're at the bottom again. It's very sort of up and down. But we had some fantastic, memories and experiences. But I got to that age, and I thought, what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to keep going? Am I going to be that guy that just keeps sort of chasing the dream and lives with the parents till I'm 40, 50 years of age? Or am I going to try and push a career? By this point, I thought, well, I'm not going to become a video editor. It's too cutthroat, and I'd have to go to uni again. And I was at an age where, what do I do? Well, my parents, they've always been into property. My dad's a carpenter. He does properties up, and he's got involved in buy to lets. So they had a bit of a rapport with Bears to Eaves, and and they said to me, "Why don't you consider a state agency?" Because I'd done some sales jobs over the years because you do jobs on the side with the music industry. It doesn't suddenly pay you a wage instantly. And I'd had jobs for Currys and Comet and people like that, where it was sort of retail sort of sales, really, greeting customers and selling products. So I was good with that, really. But they said, well, why don't you try it with a state agency? So I applied for a job, for a few different jobs, and went for an interview with Douglas Allen.
Yeah.
And it was a good interview, but I didn't quite get the job at the time. So I felt a bit deflated driving home. And then I remember my dad said, "Oh, why don't you've got your suit on? You've got a CV in the car, haven't you?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Pop into Bears to Eaves because they're just a good company. Give them a go." So I popped in, and I remember my dad said, "Ask for a guy called Steve Rue. I've done a lot of business with him over the years." So I popped in. This is the Friends branch in Basildon, and Steve wasn't there. But I went up to this other guy and said, "Hiya, can I pass on my CV?" And he went, "Oh, it's your lucky day." I went, "Why is that?" He said, "My name's Steve Price," and he was the regional manager for Bears to Eaves, and he happened to pop in there and then, doing like a branch visit. He said, "I can give you an interview right now," and he did. And fortunately, I got the job. So it's what goes to show sometimes it's the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into a state agency and started as a trainee.
Okay, amazing. What a story. Okay, so I want to come back to you being in the music business because you talked about it being up and down, and obviously being an estate agent is an absolute roller coaster. Being up and down, you
Absolutely.
have great days and challenging days. So, what lessons did you learn from being a musician?
I definitely learned from being a musician. Well, it gave me resilience. You know what I mean? It gave me perseverance because you've really got to, if you want to stand out, and don't get me wrong, obviously we didn't get right to the top and get number ones or anything like that. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here now. But at the same time, we achieved a lot, getting to America, supporting big bands like Scouting for Girls and people like that. And the only way we did that was hard work and dedication. And I think what I learned from that was work ethic. You've got to you've got to sacrifice a lot to try and achieve things. And most bands will do one rehearsal a week, whatever. We was doing 4 or 5 rehearsals a week, plus gigging on the weekends. You know, we sometimes overdid it. Sometimes we could have done more, but that gave me the work ethic. That gave me the drive. So when I became an estate agent, as you know, Stephen, you have to put in the hours. You've got to, you can't just sit there 9 to 6 or whatever and expect people to come to you. If you want to hit the listings, if you want to hit your target, you've got to be prepared to put in the hours. And I had that from the music industry. That was second nature to me.
Okay, I think for people listening or watching, there's a really big lesson here about the amount of rehearsals that you did. So you just didn't turn up in America thinking, oh, look, we're on just before scouting for girls. You know what? It's going to be really, really easy. They're going to absolutely love us. You put the hard work in. And that's one of the things I remember taking when I went to Australia and I went to Aric and we spent the morning with Troy Malcolm and McGrath's.
Oh
And
wow,
this
yeah.
and this was on the Friday before all their viewings on the Saturday. And literally they sat there and they said, right, what are some likely scenarios that are going to happen tomorrow? What are the questions we're going to be asked? Let's make sure we're prepared and we know every single answer to every single question. And they put in the practice. And I think that's a really important point for estate agents. It's not just about turning up for a market appraisal and think, yeah, this is going to be really easy. I'm going to win it. Or I'm going to turn up for a viewing and, oh, yeah, this is really easy. I know all the answers to your question. Because from my experience, I would love to say that people prepare, but they don't. So professionals practice before they play. And I think that's a fantastic lesson there, Ryan. So thank you for sharing that. So let's go to Bairstow Eves. So you built yourself up from Bairstow Eves to where you are now. What are the lessons that you've learned along the way?
Yeah, well, I've been doing this now, from Bears to Eves to this interview today. I've been doing this job for nearly 11 years now. Um, so it's a big part of my life, estate agents who like the music industry. And I would say I've certainly learned that you've got to be, like you say, the biggest thing is work ethic. If you've got the work ethic and you're prepared, like you said, Stephen, prepared to train, you're prepared to always be open-minded and feel like you want to learn more with mentors, whether you want to go on, even if you want to go on YouTube and just watch people and whatever, there's so much content out there. You've got to be prepared to train. And this is what makes me laugh, though, Stephen, about our industry. If you want to be a doctor, how many years do you have to train to be a doctor? If you want to be like my dad, if you want to be a carpenter, you don't just suddenly turn up and go, right, I'm going to do a loft conversion today. It's like you have to go to college, you have to study, you have to train, you have to always kind of learn new things. And I think with estate agents, there's some brilliant estate agents out there. There's top-notch agents out there. But there's the perception that you literally just turn up with a cheap suit and then that's it. You're ready to go. And that is true maybe for entry level, but ultimately, if you want to progress, you've got to be prepared to learn and ask questions. And even when you get to the point where you are a branch manager or you are a senior valuer or you are area manager or MD of a company, you still don't know it all. You still don't know it all. So over the years, I've learned a lot by just shadowing people. I've been fortunate that I've worked for a few different companies now, and I know sometimes that can be frowned upon that you've worked for a few different companies, but I've only ever done it for the right reasons. Some people hop, they butterfly around companies, don't they, because they get bored or it doesn't quite work out for them. I've only ever left purely for the right role, and it has paid off for me to do that. I've not just been a branch manager or valuer just with 6, 7, 8 companies. I've only ever gone for progression. And in doing so, I've also learned different skills from different companies. So I'm not trying to encourage people to just leave where they're working. Obviously, there will be people that stay at one company for 25 years, and I think that's amazing when people do that and they work their way up and full marks to you. But sometimes it can be good to just get a different influence from a different company now and again to then mold your own style.
So, what skills have you learned then from shadowing all these people?
Preparation's one of them, though, Stephen. Everyone prepares differently. You realise that what I learned a lot from, I must admit, it all stemmed, and I've got a big soft spot for working at Bairstows at the bit, and obviously Steve Price was a really good influence on me, and Simon Warren and loads of other people. But Country Ride back in the day, they were the pinnacle, weren't they, for training? Um, whether they still are now, but the experience I had, the learning was incredible. And that basic foundation has always stayed with me wherever I've gone. So I'm very thankful for that. But I think it is all about process. Now, there's always a sort of a debate, isn't there, Stephen? I see it on LinkedIn. I see some of I always watch your podcasts. So I'm glad to be here today. But I always see people sort of say, well, you can work for a corporate company and it's too over the top, too structured, or you work for an independent and it's too laid back. And I think there's pros and cons to both. I think what I've learned from independence is it's nice to have that personal feel and you can adapt and you've got a bit of freedom. What I've learned from corporate is there is a structure and there is a process of doing things, i.e. a pre-call, delivering a pack sometimes, which I don't think people do anymore. A customer care call, little things like that, which you can adapt with independence and find a balance. And I think that's what I've done over the years. Is I've just taken little bits that work and forgotten the things that I think were just not right.
Yeah, no, I love that. I think it's the tiny little things that stand out and make a massive, massive difference. What can you do to go to the extra mile? And I'm going to get this totally wrong, but I was listening to Mr. Gates' podcast with Regina McGann, and Regina said something about I think there's no competition in the extra mile, going the extra mile because nobody goes the extra mile. So, which makes totally sense. So, if you just go that extra mile, you're going to stand out even more than anybody else. So,
That's it.
so wise words from Regina for sure.
Absolutely, I completely agree. But I have also learned, Stephen, though, it is also very important to find the balance. So I know I'm promoting hard work, putting the hours and this and the other, but you don't want burnout and you don't want to be at a point where it can affect you at home or anything like that. So you've got to find the balance. And the way I look at it, since I got the role working at Fisks, I said to John Pring, the director, at the beginning when we negotiated for me to come over with this role, and I've always said this wherever I've gone, my passion is the peppermint apes and obviously my family. So they're the two things that need to come first as well as work. And there will be times where sometimes I need to leave on a Saturday for a gig, or I need to leave a bit earlier or come in a bit later. However, it's very much give and take. Everyone I work for, they know that I will work till 8 o'clock at night sometimes. They know that my laptop's with me, and if a customer needs me and it's an emergency, I will deal with it. They know that when it's my day off, if I'm working that Saturday and I'm off on a Friday, I'm probably going to come in and do evaluation if need be. So if I need that Saturday off or I need that evening, I don't feel guilty about it. So it is give and take, but it's also very important for people that are becoming estate agents and have got that drive that they also slow down as well and find time for other interests. Otherwise, you're just going to burn out and become a robot.
Yeah, wise words, wise words. You talk about having the learn it all attitude rather than the know it all attitude. So
Mm.
for people that are watching this, what sort of stuff, you mentioned YouTube, what sort of stuff should they be listening to, looking at to help them learn and grow and develop?
There's a really good podcast they should listen to. It's called Lunchtime Learnings.
I've got no idea who that's by. Yeah. You can
He
come
doesn't. He
again. You can come again now.
gave about his football team, but apart from that,
Can't have everything, can we?
no. But podcasts are brilliant. If you work for a company, there might be a mentor that's involved. If it's a corporate, some of the corporates have really good training. But there's just loads of things you can do. Ask questions. That's the biggest thing in the world. Ask questions. I'm always asking questions. I drive people nuts sometimes, but I'll always ask a question. Um, but that we live in a world now, Stephen, where it's not really acceptable not to learn. I mean, we've got AI now. That's going to give you some answers. Just go on Chat GPT and ask questions, and it will help you. But then don't just rely on that. Look into it more. There are books you can download. There's also, and we can talk about the self-employed thing as well. There are, which is the new way of the world now in estate agency. But the Keller Williams book as well, Gary Keller book.
Yeah, Real Estate Millionaire.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant book.
Yeah.
I read that. And I love podcasts. I mean, I'll go for a little walk. My little routine is I'll go for a little walk. Obviously I listen to music, but podcasts, and it will be property, and it will be the Keller Williams book. It might be yours. Chris Watkin. Yeah, I've learned a lot from his videos, and that's how I got to know you, because I saw you on there. And there's a lot of good people on there, and he shares so much, and he says a lot. It's very true. I was very fortunate to have some sessions with Christopher once, and he said, I've got all my videos on YouTube. He said, Ryan, I've got everything. It tells you how to do videos, it tells you how to prospect, it tells you how to deal with objections, but you're only going to watch some of them, aren't you? And I was like, well, and he said, you ain't going to watch it. And it made me want to watch it even more. But it's so true. Everything's there. It's free. Just go on his YouTube channel, and it tells you everything. But no one watches it. And I tell you what, I can't stand it when you speak to people that are successful or are semi-successful, and they're like, I know it all. I don't need training. Why am I going on training for? Whereas I love training days, and even if it's the same thing, I love refresher sessions, because you forget things, I do. So I like to remember little things now and again. And I would just say, find time every now and again to listen to a podcast, because, if you're in the car, when you're driving around appointments, just play something. You might if you've got a day where you're back to back and you've got 10-minute drives in between, well, you could be learning in between, couldn't you?
Or you could be listening to the Peppermint Apes. It's entirely up to you.
Well, exactly that. I don't know if they've got the budget for that. I think I should be
Okay.
paying them, actually.
Uh, Look, I think you've made on the very serious note, and that was a serious note. Now, on the very serious note, a couple of things that I think is really important for people that are watching and listening this. And you talked about finding time, and I think it is important to find time in your day. And I know people say they struggle, they're really, really busy, and we've both been there. We are really, really busy. We get really, really busy. But what gets scheduled gets done. So if you want to learn for an hour, schedule it in your diary for an hour, make it happen. Your point about your car being a university on wheels, you know,
Mm.
use it, learn. And I think you make a really important point about being curious and asking questions. I remember as kids, or I don't know if you got kids or not, but just there's like, why, Dad? Why? 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 And actually, joking aside, we should be asking those questions. If somebody's phoning up and they're looking to buy a property or they're looking to move, why is that important? Why do you want to be there? And get to understand them more. So where does that curiosity come from?
Yeah, exactly that. You've got to have it within yourself, though, as well, haven't you? To sort of have that curiosity of learning, and like you say, from a young age, it's just great. You look at toddlers; they just want to learn everything, and that's evolution, isn't it? How you start, you just ask why. It's no different in any sort of industry, is it? Really, you've just got to ask those questions and not be afraid to ask those questions, and and
100%.
practice. And I think you've got all different levels as well. And I think whether it's if you're going to be employed or you're going to be self-employed, and I've been fortunate to experience both, you've just got to know, you've got to learn these basic core principles, which is ask questions, revise, but the biggest one of all, don't give up, and be hardworking. Because I'm a firm believer that if you're asking questions, if you're practicing, you're prepared to learn, and then you're prepared to put the hours in, and you're good at what you do, you can't fail. Now if you work for a corporate, you work for an independent, you've got a little bit of a heads up because some of the leads come to you. If you're self-employed, you have to go and find it. None of it's handed on a plate, is it? And as
So if you were self-employed, or doesn't matter, it's, they still got to come to you. What would you be doing to find that first instruction?
I would, if I was self-employed tomorrow or work for a company and they, because it happens, there are people that will employ people and say, right, we're not going to give you any leads, it's a cold start, crack on. Whatever the circumstance, I would firstly contact all my friends and family because there might be someone in your social circle that's thinking of moving or knows someone who's moving. I'm sure there's one person. You'd be surprised if you wrote down a list of say 10 to 20 people, and that could be your mum, your dad, your uncle, you know, gym teacher, whatever. Just put the list down. I'm sure if you contacted all of them and said, "Hi, I've now set up as an estate agent. Do you know anybody that's thinking of moving?" I'm sure people will promote you.
Yeah, easy
So that
question.
so that would be step one. Um, but I would also utilize social media, like putting videos out on TikTok, Facebook. Hi, I've just set up. Please contact me. I'll be doing that. Um, and then just generally speaking, prospecting. Of course, you've got a door knock, you've got a canvas, you've got to do all the things that people don't like doing. Um, and it's not going to be comfortable at the beginning, but I think to be successful, I think you've got to be comfortable becoming uncomfortable.
Okay, how do you get out your comfort zone?
It's all mindset, isn't it? Because the thing is, part of the problem with mindset and comfort zone is also the people you surround yourself with as well. So that can be a challenge, and I think you're the best person to answer that with what you do in terms of if when you have the parents or friends that go, "Don't do estate agency" or "Don't go self-employed." How do you overcome that first of all?
Yeah,
And then secondly, you've got to just believe in what you're doing. But it's not just believing in what you're doing. You've got to make sure that you've covered all bases. If you're going self-employed, you've got to understand that you're not going to earn anything for 6 months. They say it's probably going to be 9 months to a year. Let's be realistic, because you might get some completions on month 6, but are you going to get consistently completions on 7 and 8? Who knows? So, are you financially covered? If you're employed, have you got a guarantee, or have you got some savings that will just top you up while you're not earning your commission? So, I would say have everything covered. Ask all the questions that you need to know. And if you've got everything covered, what's stopping you? And then once you know that you feel you're bulletproof, let's do this. Let's go and conquer the world.
brilliant. Love it. If people want to get hold of you, Ryan, how do they do that?
So you can contact me on LinkedIn. So I am on there. Just search for Ryan Stanton. You can also reach out to me. I work for Fisks Estate Agents. So just email me at ryan@fisks.co.uk.
Brilliant. Well, look, thanks for being a great guest.
You're
Really
welcome.
appreciate your time. Thanks for so much. Thanks for sharing so much advice. I learned something new that you were on stage with Scouting for Girls, or is it Scouting for Boys? I've got no idea. Shows you about my pop knowledge. But I wish you continued success. Thanks for being a great guest, and thank you all for watching, listening, and learning this year. Have a great one, everybody.
Take care.